Good evening, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. It is time for a deep dive into Tobago's development with Deputy Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Joel Jack. Now, Assemblyman Jack is also tasked with the responsibility for finance and the economy. So from the onset, we are providing food for thought while overtly sidestepping the politics of it and the upcoming THA election. It is time for In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you for making the time, Assemblyman. How are you?
I am great, Dike. It's my pleasure to be on this evening. Let me say good evening to all of Tobago and all of Trinidad and Tobago. It's my pleasure to be on.
And we really need to increase on a consistent basis the amount of conversations we have with individuals from Tobago speaking to Tobago. And with that in mind, I want to start off asking about, from your view, where you sit, what kind of impact will increasing ITC or digital services in Tobago, because it's something that we hear so much more of now where people are working remotely or virtually. But what kind of positives or possibly even negatives do you see building ITC capacity in Tobago to the economy?
Well, one of our policy initiatives moving forward is really to leverage the importance of ICT as an enabler for socioeconomic development. And central to that is our vision to transform Tobago into an intelligent island model after Singapore and Estonia. And plans are afoot with respect to undertaking a study with our partners at TSTT. And also central to rolling out our intelligent island mandate is the construction of a Tier 3 data center. I think I have made this statement many times before that we should not waste a good crisis. And what this COVID-19 pandemic has done is really for us to allow to examine the opportunities that digital infrastructure will provide. And as part of our mandate, as outlined as well in the medium-term planning framework, and my recent budget in 2021 was for us to digitize government services. And we have stated that that is our mandate moving forward, so that persons can access government services on a digital platform.
But one of the things that I am a bit cautious about when I hear, we're not wasting a good crisis, we are diving into the technology, is what does that make of our cultural intelligence, our cultural heritage? Do you see that dive into something like the Singapore model or increasing capacity like that being detrimental to the heritage aspect of Tobago?
Well, on the contrary, it was last week, Friday, I was interacting with a group of young people, and there was one lady who is an actor, entertainer, and she was impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and she has pivoted. And what she has done is to use the social media platform to earn a living and leveraging the social media and ICT as an enabler. And she became agile and said, well, listen, I can't have the face-to-face typical shows, singing engagements and gigs. So she's using social media. And that sort of mindset is what we need to move forward in the midst of the crisis, where persons are looking for opportunities and maximizing the use of technology. We now are familiar with the virtual online classroom, virtual meetings, and therefore we have sought in the Assembly through the creation of TPAC to really leverage and to harness our cultural space, our cultural artisans, and to provide a seamless space for them and to motivate them during this challenging period. And with the creation of TPAC, all our cultural practitioners will now have a home under a formal umbrella, and where we can harness Tobago's talent and even develop and to continue the transformation of the island using various genres, highlighting our various culture and our art form. And this will be a revenue earner, and in the not too distant future, using social media. And once the economy reopens and we start having international arrivals, this will also we'll cement the linkages with the tourism sector, and thereby persons will be able to earn additional income. It is time for us to monetize the culture and the arts, and this is something that I am excited about as Secretary, as we look for meaningful sectors to develop as we expand Tobago's economy.
You spoke about TPAC and you make me feel that you're looking at my questions. And definitely, just before we get into speaking about the significance of an institution like TPAC, the comment that you made about the creativity and parameters possibly just being those that our minds can see. So if you can dream bigger than the situation is possible, that you can work towards it, is something that I really appreciate. But how important, from your view, is an institution like TPAC and others within Tobago itself that help to build capacity, formalize cultural learning, or just learning in general? Because I can see the opportunity for someone to leave from Tobago and come to Trinidad, but at the same time being in Tobago with people who have insider knowledge and saying, okay, well, this is how your foot's supposed to turn for the Congo Belly. So you're getting it right from the source, as opposed to having to cross waters, even though Trinidad and Tobago. But the creators, the originators, being able to teach and pass on that knowledge. How important is an institution like that?
TPAC is the catalyst for the creative industry in Tobago, and it will be a game changer and take the creative industry to the next level. The beauty about it is that almost all of the persons who are leading TPAC are relatively young, and they are products of the Assembly's Human Capital Development Program. So you can see the linkages there. And for a long time, we are well aware of the fact that Tobago is well endowed with a rich cultural heritage. And therefore, what we are seeing now is a preservation of our cultural heritage and the transfer of that cultural acumen from one generation to the next, preserving Tobago's culture, but also allowing us to exploit and look at other genres and even mix. So who knows, you would be seeing some unique music, film, the arts, dances, theatrical production coming from Tobago, but while at the same time preserving the island's heritage. What we have done, we have invested through our Human Capital Development Program to send a number of these young, talented individuals to some of the best schools abroad, and now they are returning and they're giving back to the island, and they're assisting the Assembly in developing our creative sector. So who knows, next we'll be having the Tobago Hollywood's film industry, a very robust dance or music industry. And so the future and the possibilities are immense for young persons who are talented and persons who might have said to themselves, we have no opportunity, there is no outlet. And as an Assembly, we have identified the creative sector for investment as a sector that we will invest in, and in the next 3 to 5 years, we will see significant returns coming from this sector.
And we want to talk about some of the other potential investments when we return from this break. We are speaking with Deputy Chief Secretary of the THA, Joel Jack. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are going in depth on Tobago development with Deputy Chief Secretary of the THA, Joel Jack. And we took the break just when you were speaking about investments, Mr. Jack. What are some of those investments? If you had carte blanche, resources, funds, I don't like to dangle stuff like this in front of people who deal with money, But what are some of the 3 of those things that you say, okay, well, these are 3 things I want to check off the list, and I'm sure they will move Tobago in the direction that Tobago is supposed to be going?
Well, my top 3 priority areas will be: 1, human capital development. Our currently 23% of the island's workforce, they are in possession of tertiary education. We need to double that to about 50%. So I will be investing primarily first in human capital development, and that will give us the competitive edge that we need to develop a number of sectors on the island. The second area of focus will be in infrastructure development, and one area in particular is that digital infrastructure, and we alluded to it earlier. That is the infrastructure that we need to future-proof the island, and that is where we need to focus our investment at this time. In order for us to attract certain industries to the island, we need to expand our current broadband infrastructure and capacity, and we need to bridge the digital gap and divide on the island, and that is something. And the third area of focus will be the tourism sector. And we have identified one, expanding the number of tourism plans on the island, and we have started with in 2023, we're looking forward to the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the new Marriott Hotel. What will happen once this facility is open, and what we have seen to date is a number of other properties who are interested in coming to the island. We currently have a room stock gap of between 2,500 to 3,500 rooms, and once that happens, we will see that this investment in the tourism sector being a catalyst for other sectors such as agriculture, because of the linkages that we can forge with tourism, agriculture, the creative industry, or agro-processors or light manufacturers. So those would be my top three areas, and they continue to be the focal point of the island's development, and they are also outlined in our medium-term planning framework as we solidify and put together a format and cogent plans to advance the island's development.
I want to take your second and third point and put them together a little bit, because looking at digital infrastructure, it is well and good, but some people might say, okay, well, while the grass is growing, the horse is starving. So historical buildings and the hotel sector and industry that you would have spoken to, are there things that are on the ground happening now? And we also look at this within the context of the fact that we are in a pandemic, and things may not be where we want them to be, to put it mildly at best. But how do you treat with looking at the ideal and operating from where you are at this point in time?
Well, the pandemic has upended all our plans, and you're right. And managing within a crisis, within an environment, an unpredictable environment, is indeed challenging. However, I believe we have confronted these challenges, and while we managed to preserve lives and livelihood during this time, we are also navigating and reopening the economy. There are a number of sectors already reopening, the construction sector, and more importantly, the tourism sector. And because of that fact, some major projects are ongoing, such as the construction of the new A&R Robinson International Terminal. We also have earmarked the construction of a marina in 2023, and we have other major projects happening at this time. And the construction work, and as other industries reopen, the economy and the Tobago economy is poised to recover in 2021, growing by 1.2%, and with continued growth projected for fiscal 2022 and 2023, and it's projected to grow by 2% and 2.9% respectively. And in that context, as we continue to manage amidst the crisis, we are also managing with finite resources, and I must thank the Minister of Finance and the central government for working together with the Tobago House of Assembly to provide alternative financing mechanisms and additional resources, so that for the first time in the history of the Assembly, we were afforded $300 additional million to expand and to execute our public sector investment program. So the areas of focus will continue to be the tourism sector, agriculture, ICT, And we are also looking to instill resilience in the economy and provide the necessary support to the private sector so that the private sector can be the engine of economic activity here in Tobago.
But with the opportunity to get alternative revenue streams, how important is that sort of fiscal literacy? And this is something I know is a passion project, something that you've been involved in, Assemblyman, day-to-day operational work, best practice for SMEs, because sometimes best practice for an SME might not necessarily what is available in the short term. And I know I asked you this question seeing that you would have had the role of program coordinator of the Financial Literacy Secretariat. So how do we treat with that?
Well, we're looking at providing the necessary support to the SME sector and the wider business community. When I came into office in 2013, I approved funding of just under $500,000 to assist a number of private sector entities under the Tobago Chamber to assist them in getting their financial statements up to date and their documents up to date so that they can participate in the government's loan guarantee program at the time. We are in the midst of another crisis, and following extensive consultations with the stakeholders in the business community, both tourism and other sectors, they indicated that the initial $50 million program by the government, that they wanted additional support. So the initial $50 million went to the tourism sector to assist them to retool and refurbish during this challenging period. And recently the Minister of Finance announced and supported our recommendations for an additional $50 million to the tourism sector to provide working capital and other support for the sector during this challenging period. We also worked with the government and gave recommendations for the revision of the loan guarantee program during this time. And we're hoping that persons in the business community will take up the opportunity and to participate to assist them in recovering during this challenging time. You spoke about, the financial education and assisting them to retool. And the recommendation that I would provide is that, in fact, what we have seen and what the pandemic has exposed is the fact that a number of these business entities did not have their books in order, and as such they were unable to participate in the loan guarantee program and other programs by the Tobago House of Assembly. So we'll continue to work with them, hold their hands and assist them during this challenging period so that the private sector and the wider business community, that they can recover in the shortest possible time.
I want to thank you so much for that, as well as let me just put in a plug once more for the creative sector. There are some beautiful things that I have seen coming out of Tobago in terms of like the almost documentary work of the people doing the Blue Food Festival, recipes and all of these things that we're able to content that we're able to consume virtually, and it's beautiful. And we're looking forward to a little more. But thank you so much, Deputy Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Joel Jack.
Thank you,
and on behalf of the entire, our supreme pleasure, and on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth. Thank you for joining us.